Today, I'm here to answer one simple question. How good are the starter decks in LoR, and can you win consistently with them? Moreover, if they're actually decent, can you upgrade them, creating viable decks with them in the current meta? To answer this question, we're going to have a look at all of the starter decks and choosing one with which we'll experiment, seeing if or how we can improve it without breaking the bank and spending all of your resources. Having a closer look at the starter decks, you get provided with 3 types of decks. We have a burn control aggression deck with Z, burn meaning that you have spells that directly damage the enemy nexus without any prerequisite, and control meaning we are still running a good amount of removal spells and cards that mostly focus on controlling the board stage. This in turn means you don't necessarily want to play the long game with this deck, killing your opponent early. All in all, this is not a bad starter deck, but in my opinion, we would need to change quite a lot of the cards, basically changing the core of this deck, so I wouldn't recommend trying to climb with it in the beginning. Looking at the second starter deck, with Braum, Garen, Lux and Tryndamere, we get a bit of a different flavor of LoR. Even though both of these decks are stakes, this one is a lot less spicy and more meaty in its appearance. On a more serious note, we're looking at a high value control deck with a decent amount of finishes. If you just want to play one deck straight away, this one would probably serve you okay, as you're running a decent amount of board clear, a very good amount of early value, and some tasty finishes with the Tryndamere Lux or They Who Endure. Nonetheless, this would need a decent amount of changing, as personally speaking I don't like the split between a heavy early game focused deck with a decent mid-range and some odd finishes. Running this many early game units will make you have a rather bad time in the mid and late if you don't get to finish your opponent rather quickly. If you do like the playstyle, maybe consider going for an elite deck, such as this, as a lot of the early game potential is still the same, and while you're giving away a lot of the late game potential, you at least make sure you have a unified idea, or rather direction, this deck is going for, which is always something you should strive for. Last but not least, there's the Elise Darius deck. This deck, right off the bat, feels like it's the most refined out of all of the decks you get, as it has one clear direction it is going with. The cards are mostly rather cheap, going with a bit of an odd removal here and there, and you have one sole purpose: run your opponent down, and if they survive, finish with the Darius. Anything and everything in this deck is working towards that goal, with a decent Spider Elise core, meaning that it is one of the main mechanics in this deck, some burn damage, and a finishing move with the Darius. This deck is not necessarily hard to play, and should be the easiest to pilot out of any of these decks, as you just need to follow the basic rules of go, die, making it a perfect fit for any newcomer. On top of that, upgrading this deck is quite cheap, and with a bit of extra resources you can even turn it into a more modern deck type, replacing Darius with Gwen and playing a Hallowed aggression based deck. Now, knowing all of that, let's get to upgrading this deck. We switch out a bunch of the spiders, making Elise more of a second thought in this deck, but in exchange for that we get a bunch of more early game aggression with the Crimson Pigeon and the Arena Battlecaster, which are always great to deal some early damage. We switch out some of the removal spells, getting a Quietus mixed up in the deck, which is either a good early removal spell or it can be used to get around chunky equipment like the ones in Orange X decks. With the Nox and Forever and Decimate, we get some more burn damage in this deck, making sure that close games should more likely turn in your favor, and the Shubno should always be working to that end too. Even though we could upgrade the deck more looking at it now, this would come at the cost of making it a lot more expensive than it was previously. At the moment, the only thing really standing out is the Crimson Pigeon, which you can exchange for some different early units if you need to, even though I do think it is a very decent craft for most aggression type decks anyways. There are even 2 more different variations of this deck, which I will not go into any further, but are in the description. The Hallowed one I was talking about earlier, and another beginner friendly deck that was made by Cephlas, a high level LoR player, so all credits go to him for that one. Lastly, and most importantly, of course make sure to subscribe so you don't miss content like this in the future. But before I waste anybody's time, let's get started with the game I have prepared for you. Alrighty, we are now running into a bit of a slower matchup, slower for him that is, not for us. So let's see how this is gonna turn out. I do think we have a decent chance to deal a good amount of damage in the early game. The starting hand I am not so keen of. To get one of our 1-drops, that is very much something we do want. It's gonna be a free 3 damage, even though he does seem to have a 1 spell card in hand. Maybe some kind of prank card, we'll see. Oh, Chronologist coming down now, okay. Might want to Vile Feast that, he doesn't get to block next turn. Let me see, so if we go for the Battlecaster now. Alright, if I go for the Battlecaster now, go Vile Feast next turn, I think that is the way to go. Or just, House Spider. Thinking about it, probably would have been better playing the other way around, first House Spider than the Battlecaster, but it is what it is for now. He's 100% gonna trade the Chronologist into the Battlecaster, I do imagine. Now the only question is if he has a spell card to remove any of the annoying stuff for him, or if he's gonna be playing another follower. I think he's playing all that many followers at all, so 2 spells, okay. It's getting rid of the Battlecaster that way. It's not necessarily a very efficient turn. It's gonna probably block the 3-2 with the 2-1, yeah. Still, get him down a bit lower. Down to 14. We have the Phantom Butler coming up. Arkanoid Sentry I am not feeling too good about. Could get the Elise level up actually. Dealing 2 is not gonna be good enough for the Elise. Probably gonna go Elise here, see what he does. Maybe he's gonna drop another cheap follower that we can Vile Feast, because that will level up the Elise. If we would Vile Feast that. Do we care about the Elise level up? We might do, actually. I mean, he could always just, you know, darkness it, so I don't think we'll go for that. We would need to spend 2 spell mana on the Vile Feast, draining 1, which is not really gonna help us, so... He wants to get rid of the house better, interesting. Obviously, he's now gonna be able to block the Elise, but, you know, we don't actually really care if she dies, so that is fine. We could also sacrifice the Phantom Butler. It's gonna give us 1 extra attack next turn. I don't think that is worth it. Sacrificing him here. Do get the Battlecaster. Turn 5, he might be playing the Victor. Do you think he would have played that last turn though? Let's go with the Battlecaster, see what he does. And we can also stun this turn, so... If he's not playing anything else, you know, we just attack like this. If he's playing something else, we can also just stun it. The next cheapest thing he could be playing is, you know, another one of the Manifest a Spell, the 2/1s. Or like a Victor or stuff like that. Or Seraphine. Or Ezreal. But he's not running a lot of cheap follows, is what I'm trying to say. So there might be a chance that he, you know, wouldn't be able to block it all this turn. Especially if he spends like all of his mana now on some kind of spell just killing 1 unit or so. We might be in a very good situation here. That's another Chronologist. Okay. This time around I do think we'll buy these, because we get 1 more, he's going to get 1 less. He is certainly not going to be able to block any of these now. This turnaround, he's probably going to try killing the Elise, I would imagine. But we deal a very decent amount of damage, even threatening lethal. And we have a Decimate coming up. He does not have a deny, he's not running that. And I do believe we've won this game now. I mean, we even have like Legion Saboteur, 1 more stun still, a lot of stuff. Let me think, now is there any outplay for him for the Decimate? I don't believe so. So we'll just go for that, and that should be a GG. Maybe he has like Drain. But, you know, don't think he does actually. Don't think there's any Drain in that deck, and even if he like has some Drain in hand, that probably is only Drain 1, right? Okay, what was that now? Puzzling Signpost, okay. Well, we can just replay that next turn. Also, we do have the Legion Saboteur. We just forced him to basically waste his entire turn. I'm not gonna block that, not in 100 years. Let's go for the Legion Saboteur. We'll attack straight away now. I don't see how he could, you know, survive that. And even if he does, we still have the Decimate coming up. And there's that. GG. Alrighty. Good stuff. That was, you know, rather straightforward. And as you can see, that was in Masters also. Quickly, before you all run off and watch some educational content, make sure to let me know if you want to see more videos like this in the future, and stay safe and have a good day.